Welcome to Jared News Network. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Make sure you guys are visiting our website, which is finally up, jarednewsnetwork.us. And make sure you're following us on Twitter at JNN_US. We complain so much, y'all, about ABC, NBC, CBS, all of these news organizations which constantly portray our community in a negative light. So instead of complaining, what you guys can do is help to build up Jared News Network, which is a Black-owned media company, so we can build this into a powerhouse so that we have a comparable platform when it comes time to telling our stories or whatever's going on within our community. We can make sure that the people who are reporting on it are actually part of our community and are actually going to give the real story as opposed to something that is meant to put a narrative out there that makes us look the way that they always try to make us look. You know what I'm saying? So that's what you guys can do. I appreciate all the support. I will be letting you guys know as soon as I have a Cash App or a way that you guys can donate to the company. All right. Let me start off with Clarence Gilliard Jr., guys. And this is someone who you will recognize probably from Die Hard. Those of y'all familiar with the movie, which is constantly debated about whether or not it's actually a Christmas movie, but he had a pretty big role in that movie. He also was big in Walker, Texas Ranger, which starred Chuck Norris, which is a series that lasted a long time, I believe, on CBS. Did a great job there as well. Just a super talented actor, man. He was also part of Matlock. So, a big loss for our community and definitely our condolences to his family. I believe he was teaching at UNLV these days. So definitely a big loss. Let me move on to Wes Moore, governor-elect, actually, of Maryland, Wes Moore. He talked about the racial wealth gap in an interview with Jonathan Capehart, which, no comments on Jonathan Capehart, but I want to let you hear some of this interview so you can hear what he had to say. I'm someone who has had my share of criticisms of Wes Moore, and they still stand, but I do like some of what he had to say in this clip, so I'm going to share that with you guys.
So your mantra during the campaign, because we talked many times during the campaign, and in every interview, including this one, you talked about work, wages, and wealth. So let's focus in on wealth. You made your top priority is to eliminate the racial wealth gap. How are you going to do that in Maryland? And is that part of your? Are you going to start doing that in your first 100 days?
Absolutely, we are. And it's not just a priority because it's important for a group. It's important for the entire state to understand why having a racial wealth gap in the state of Maryland of 8-to-1 is so dangerous. And we have seen reports, just recently national reports have shown that the racial wealth gap has cost this country $16 trillion over the past 2 decades in GDP.
I want to just outline that real quick. Has cost the country $16 trillion in GDP.
That's not growth for a group. That's not GDP of a demographic. That's GDP. And so we've got to be able to address the issue of the racial wealth gap if we're going to watch long-term economic growth that's going to take place and be sustainable in the rest of the state of Maryland. So to do that, that means things like ensuring that we can focus on unfair appraisal values in historically red line neighborhoods, because one of the main drivers that we have of wealth in our society is appraisal values of neighborhoods, appraisal values of real estate. And if you have such a schism between how that racial wealth gap and how that appraisal value works and looks, it has a significant impact on the wealth gap. It means we've got to focus on getting people back to work and making sure they're getting paid a fair wage.
See, all right, what he said in theory is correct in terms of the appraisal process, and it needs to be overhauled. Yes. However, he was kind of short on exactly how he planned on doing that. Now, whether or not he was keeping that short just because it's the Washington Post and he doesn't want to go on and on about it, not really sure, but I am going to be watching him to see exactly how he plans on making that happen, because it does need to happen. But to go from that to, all right, well, what about a fair wage? Well, what about finishing up your thought on what you was just speaking about, Wes?
For the work that they are doing. So that means being able to accelerate how we're thinking about the minimum wage in the state of Maryland, where right now in the state of Maryland, the minimum wage is set to increase to $15 an hour by 2025. We need to accelerate that, particularly knowing now that we have so many people who essentially are the Alice population, the asset constrained, income limited, and also but employed. So the people who are working, in some cases working multiple jobs, and still living at or below a poverty line. We've got to address that group. And it also means we've got to focus on entrepreneurship, teaching our children through our education system how not just to be employees, but to be employers, making sure we're focusing on an ownership society where we're increasing liquidity for our small businesses and specifically for our minority-owned businesses, our women-owned businesses, our veteran-owned businesses. Because if you can increase liquidity to our entrepreneurs, if you can create access to capital to our entrepreneurs, and that means supporting things like our Black-owned banks and our NDIs, or minority deposit institutions.
Okay, there are some things here saying that are good points that he's hitting on in terms of obviously supporting Black-owned banks. He talks about increasing liquidity. Okay, these things sound good, but understand these are sound bites. He's doing something similar to what Barack Obama did when he was campaigning amongst our community. He understood these are the things that these people want. Increasing access to capital has been something I've talked about time and time again. It is very important. However, you're not explaining how it is you want to do this. Telling us what the issue is, okay, you can identify what the problem is. Now, how are you going to fix it? You see what I mean? Like, there's a difference between interviewing someone to get kind of a summary about what they plan on doing versus actually getting details. Okay, how are you going to do it? What specifically are you going to do? And I have a feeling, and this is not only based upon this interview, which you guys can go on YouTube and see the whole interview. It's about 50 minutes long or whatever. You can watch it if you like. As it relates to FBA, Friedman, as it relates to us and what's in it for us, you don't get to where he's at to be the governor of Maryland unless you have certain ideals, unless you have a certain agenda. And, come on, y'all. I don't think I have to tell you guys that it's not going to line up with anything that's going to turn out good for us. So I like what he had to say, but he didn't really get into any details about how he plans on bringing all of that to fruition. So, you can get someone right now in middle school who can tell you what some of the problems are in our community. The issue is, how exactly are you going to fix it? So I'm not going to play any more of that interview. You guys, like I said, if you want to watch it, by all means, knock yourself out. Moving on to former President Bill Clinton test positive for COVID. Whatever. Moving on, Stephen A. Smith is mad at black folks and nobody cares. So Stephen A. Smith, man, this is somebody who I really despise. It's unfortunate that I have to even play this clip, but I have to, man. He wants attention, so let's give him some attention. Let's show you guys how he feels about us.
On a serious note, last week I brought up the stuff about Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones being a 14-year-old or 15-year-old, depending on which report you believe, and how he was in North Little Rock High School.
The picture.
Yeah, the picture, right? And there have been a lot of people that have been misconstruing my message, talking about I'm coming to Jerry Jones' defense. What was he doing there, Stephen A? What I said was, it's a still picture of a 14-year-old from 66 years ago. I stand by what I said last week, but I only bring up that subject to say this. This ain't the necessary platform to go where I'm going to go in terms of some black folks in our community talking smack. And so there's certain things that I want to address. You know what? People run their mouths and they talk a lot of stuff with their podcasts and all of this other stuff. Yeah, I got a television show, but I got a podcast too. And I'm going to address this on my Wednesday podcast. And all I'm going to say is it's black on black. And you know what? I don't even know what white folks need to be listening with the stuff that I'm going to say.
This guy, if you're trying to drive traffic to your podcast that nobody listens to anyway, there's better ways to do it, bro. Like threatening that you're going to say something that somehow, it's going to hurt. Nothing you do, Stephen A. Smith, nothing you do, we are concerned with at all. We expect the behavior we got out of you when it comes to Jerry Jones. We know how you act already. That's your MO, bro. So yeah, people were talking about it because they're disgusted with it. They're disgusted with you, Stephen A. Smith. It's you. Nobody misconstrued your words. It was you going to bat for Jerry Jones. It was you saying how he's improved the lives of so many black men. Look at all the black NFL players as if they're not doing anything to enrich Jerry Jones. Just saying, that was you. Nobody misconstrued anything. I know you're a little frustrated though. So let's listen to just a small clip of this podcast that probably less than 10 people knew existed before he mentioned it. So let's hear it.
Barack Obama. He was just the president of the United States. See, we love him now. But when he was in office, he's not doing enough. Before that, when he was campaigning to win office, he had to give a speech on race because of his affiliation with the Reverend out in Chicago.
That would be Reverend Jeremiah Wright. And let me apologize to y'all for this buffoon and his yelling. Barack Obama, he had to resign about race. What? Why can't you just talk, man? Like, I understand that the powers that be pay you to act like this because they think this is how we act. Those of us with sense do not act like this. We don't talk like this. This is just pitiful, man. Let me let this play out, though.
And when he didn't say certain things, or he didn't elaborate extensively as much as people wanted him to do, black folks then were talking about, well, what's he supposed to do? He can't say this, he can't say that, because he's trying to get elected. But then when he got elected, you couldn't understand how he had to maneuver his way through that political terrain in order to strive to get things done. Make up your mind. Make up your mind.
I'm tired just hearing his voice. Like, I don't know about y'all, man, but I don't understand any of you. First things first, any of y'all who watch First Take every day, if this is y'all, if you are his audience, you need to seek help immediately. I can't take listening to 1 minute and 30 seconds of him going, Barack Obama. Like, I don't understand how you guys subject yourselves to this for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, some of y'all an hour. And any of y'all who listen to his podcast regularly, I just don't understand. I don't get it. I don't want to get it. I swear I don't want to know y'all. Like, something is seriously wrong with you people. That minute that I just played, he did not make one point about anything. Anything. I don't want to listen to the rest of it because I don't really care what he has to say. We all heard exactly what he had to say about Jerry Jones. We were disgusted by it, and rightfully so, and that is what it is. So, yeah, but he's upset, though, and he's obviously letting him bother this. He's more bothered by this than what actually occurred during the civil rights era. Have you heard Stephen A. Smith say anything this passionately? The way that he defended Jerry Jones, have you heard him say how much he is disgusted by the children who were spit on, the fire hoses that were turned on little black kids, the black girls that were blown up in the church? Have you heard Stephen A. Smith talk passionately about it? Now, I'm not saying he hasn't mentioned black issues in the past. I'm saying, have you heard him to this degree talk about how disgusted he is by the savage-like behavior that our people had to endure? Because I have not. I'm just saying. Moving on, Hakeem Jeffries, representative out of New York and Brooklyn, is now replacing Nancy Pelosi as the leader in the Democratic Party. And he is the first, let me get this on the screen real quick. He is going to be the first black party leader in U.S. history. Now, we've been down this road with the first this, the first that, Ketanji Brown Jackson, the same thing, the first black woman. It's always the first black, we don't care, y'all. I don't know if the powers that be have figured this out yet. We don't care. We would just want to know what's in it for us now. We don't care that you chose him to now be the new Nancy Pelosi, because that's exactly what he's going to be. It's just going to be Nancy Pelosi in a 30-something year younger, different gender body. That's what this is. So anyone who has now, fooled themselves into believing this is going to materialize into anything for us, if this is going to turn into tangibles for us, I got news for you. It's not going to happen. Now, Fox News they couldn't help themselves. So let me show y'all this real quick, because Fox News caught on real quick. They was like, oh, wait a minute. If he's going to be coming in there, let's just get out in front of this right now. Look at this. Hakeem Jeffries, Pelosi's likely replacement, supports commission to study slavery reparations. And yes, he was one of the, as you see there on the screen, one of nearly 200 co-sponsors of the bill. They're referencing H.R. 40 here. This is about studying reparations, and the bill is pretty much garbage, y'all. It's not even worth wiping your behind with it. But Fox never, they never pass on an opportunity to pretend as though there's something to fear here about him being the leader of the Democratic Party. They just want to make you think. They want their readers to think, oh, and viewers, oh, well, here comes the big bad black guy. No, he's not. You guys don't have to worry about anything at all with this guy, or he wouldn't be there. He did say things such as, let me highlight this for y'all. You know, he went on this monologue talking about slavery and whatever, and he was like, we're not going to move on because after slavery, there was Jim Crow and the rise of the KKK and the lynching epidemic and Plessy versus Ferguson and Black Wall Street in 1921 destroyed. There were a plethora of massacres that occurred that he could have went on to mention, but he went on anyway, talking about this is a great country. We've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. We're not perfect, but we're marching to a more perfect union. The least we can do is study these historic wrongs. That's the least this Congress can do. Oh, believe me, Hakeem, we know that you're only interested in doing the very least you can do. We are well aware of that. That's why your support, I saw an article earlier today, actually, I think it was in the New York Times, saying that the black voter turnout for the midterms was historically low. And you wonder why that is. You wonder why that is. Well, you know, you guys are just tone deaf, man. Y'all don't get it, but whatever. Anyway, so I just wanted to let you guys know that he has been elected to replace Nancy Pelosi. So that's official. Let me go on in the last bit of news for the day. San Francisco votes to allow the use of lethal robots. What could go wrong with this? San Francisco will allow police to deploy robots that kill. Now, people actually thought this was a good idea. The vote was 8-3, with the majority agreeing to grant police the option, despite strong objections from civil liberties and other police oversight groups. Opponents said the authority would lead to the further militarization of a police force already too aggressive with poor and minority communities. Code words for guess what, black folks? If you thought it was bad with the regular cops, here goes RoboCop. And, you know, now, can these robots be hacked? I mean, there are a lot of questions here, and they just went on with this anyway. Never mind, let's study this a bit longer or whatever. Let's just get right to it. So when something malfunctions and the city is going to have all sorts of lawsuits, I mean, if you are black and living in San Francisco right now, you should be planning on how you can get out of there. It's that real. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you need to do right now, start putting together a plan. If you got family out there, start figuring out where else can we go. And I don't know, y'all, what's in store, but I do know it's not going to be good. So that's your news for the day, y'all. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I'm going to be doing this probably about 3 times a week. I'm going to be making some changes. You know, I'm figuring out what works right now. I'm in kind of testing. I'm in the testing phase. So this is going to probably look way different in about a couple of weeks, but I hope you guys will support the channel, support the website, and support this media company, y'all, because we need something that really can contend with the Reuters of the world and the Bloomberg News of the world. You know what I'm saying? So we have to have our own media powerhouse, and I hope that you guys will see fit to make Jared News Network that powerhouse. All right, y'all.